Welcome to today's episode of Talking Shop. And today we're going to be talking about how to spot a bad hire before it costs you 6 months of frustration. Rach, what's your advice?
Yeah, this is one that we see far too often, unfortunately, where the shop owner has put in the best of intentions in bringing in someone new, someone they think looks like the answer to their problems because of the way that they're presenting, but a few things they didn't pick up on during the recruitment process will actually show up in the first 6 months of employment for that shop owner to determine this wasn't the right hire after all. So a couple of things for you to look out for when you believe you've got a good or even great candidate. So one thing that you might not pick up on is when your candidate submits their CV or their resume, if they're already on the job market, as in they don't currently have a job, even if it's only been a week or two, but they don't have their most recent employer listed as a referee. Now, that might not seem like a big deal. We would all know that previously when we were employees, we might not always have parted ways with our previous employer in a great fashion and not wanted our next employer to contact them. But these are just little insights for you to ask direct questions in the interview process. Oh, I noticed that your most recent employer isn't listed as a referee. Would they not be willing to speak about your employment with them? Ask direct questions like that and you'll find out pretty quickly if the story you've been told about their last employment is accurate or not. And yes, you are allowed to ask direct questions like that. It might feel uncomfortable because you've probably got to this point in the recruitment process with this person and you're starting to think, this person's looking really good, and you don't actually want something to turn up in their closet, a skeleton.
Yeah, you're kind of attached to the outcome of filling a hole you think you've got in your business, and so you hire more out of desperation rather than getting more pieces of the puzzle to know whether this person's actually right for your business.
That's right. The other thing to glean just from the referee section on their resume is where they've listed co-workers. It is not ever adequate for you to call someone's co-worker, and especially not someone who wasn't their direct supervisor. So you've actually got to take the onus on yourself, if they're no longer employed by that company anymore, to reach out to the company, and there's only really one question that you want them to answer when you've kind of got this niggling feeling, and that is, would you hire this person back if the opportunity arose? Because if that answer comes back no, that means there's something in that person's employment with that company that they're not telling you about. So who they write on their resume as a referee is also important.
Speaking of the resume, if you notice that over the last 12, 18, 24 months, they've had a number of jobs, number of employees, what are some of the questions you might be looking to ask a potential hire about multiple roles in a relatively short amount of time?
Yeah, I think just the direct question. I noticed that you've had multiple places of work in the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Can you tell me about the reason for changing so frequently?
And
Simple.
and if in that the answer is they talk about how bad the bosses were,
Yep.
You've probably got
You don't hire them.
you don't because you'll be the next.
Because you'll be the next one. That's exactly right. And we always have to. I mean, there are bad bosses out there. We all know that. But you have to believe people when they show you who they are the first time, and they're just literally showing you with an answer like that they don't take responsibility at all for their workplace outcomes. So they're a no-go either.
Now, let's just quickly switch this to, okay, you've actually brought a new team member in, and now you're observing them in your workplace, on the workshop floor, in amongst your team, and you're starting to get this gut feel that maybe this isn't right. What are some of the signs, let's say 2 or 3 of the signs that that you could be observing from a new team member? That's, I guess, that orange flag or that red flag, which is, shit, maybe I've got this wrong here. And we've all done it. So what are the signs we need to be looking out for when the person's actually in the team already?
Well, I think there's some really obvious ones that aren't even time dependent. So there is a settling in period, of course, but things like punctuality, clock watching, and then where you've hired an experienced tradesperson or an alleged experienced tradesperson, the quality of their work, if it looks like they're taking shortcuts, and the most obvious outcome of that is that you'll have comebacks. Also, how they're interacting with the team. That's, as I said, there's a settling in period, but some of the most obvious signs initially are going to be habits that they've bought from their previous workplaces. So you've just got to assess what they are, and you need to take into account, is your culture strong enough to overcome those habits or not? Yeah,
so there we go. The red flags to look out for, the little signs to look out for before you bring someone into your team. Check previous employment history, check who they've got on their references and how many roles they've had over the last 12 to 18 months. And when they're inside your business and you're starting to think, well, maybe this isn't quite right. Are they a cultural fit? Punctuality is a big one. If they're late within the first 2 to 3 weeks, then you've probably got a bit of an answer on how they're going to play the game. The best way to avoid a bad hire is to not hire them in the first place, and if you can't do that, is to move them on quickly before it becomes a bigger problem for yourself. And we'll see you on the next episode of Talking Shop.